Hi, I'm Mark Dresner, and welcome to Shopper Insights TV. Joining me today is Mr. J.D. Spangler on my far right. He is the VP of Category Development, and to my immediate right is Mr. John Whitaker. So, Hanes category would seem to be fairly stable, kind of commoditized area where you're almost immune, it would seem to me, to the sorts of disruption that you're seeing, for instance, with the economy in recent years. Do you have any war stories of your own, any instances that you can share with us?
Sure. It's interesting that you start the question, out saying that it would seem commoditized and stable. It's really been anything but stable recently. Cotton has gone from about 40 cents, 50 cents a pound to well over $2 a pound. In fact, it was up more than the price of gold in the last 18 months. So that's created a lot of instability and really created an opportunity to address and talk about some of those norms, if you will. And a big one would be that socks and underwear are commodities. They're products that people wear every single day from literally about the time they're born until they take their last breath on the planet. So they're close, they're personal, and what we've found is that brands really do make a difference, brands really do matter, but we've had to go out and build the case to dispel that rumor.
And you really do have to start with the consumer and get that insight into is this widely held belief true or not? And so that word commoditized, that was a fascinating thing for us to research. So we started with going out into the consumer marketplace and benchmarking to categories that were widely viewed as being commodity categories, conversely looking at categories that are widely viewed as being at the opposite end of that spectrum where it's really brand driven. And when we looked at those categories and then benchmarked our product categories on that continuum from a consumer behavior, a consumer perception perspective, we were really close to those heavily branded categories that absolutely are not commoditized.
It sounds like a pretty ambitious piece of research, to say the least. Were there any specific aha moments that when you brought them back internally and sat down and tried to really lay out what the story is here, that perhaps really made a little bit of a commotion with people?
Yeah, probably the one key insight that surprised us the most. We knew that in heavily branded categories where brands really drive shopper behavior, you see a lot of price disparity between the lowest priced products in that category and the highest priced. We certainly saw the same thing in underwear, but the big surprise was perceptually people think that they spend a lot more on the category and on specific products than they really do. So that gave us a real point of reassurance that in an inflationary environment, we're really actually moving prices in the direction in which consumers already perceptually feel they're at already.
But in order to exploit mutually beneficial opportunities that may again fly in the face of preconceived notions.
Sure. Well, one of the first things we quickly realized was that they're facing the same challenges that we are. And in our category, a lot of our retailers have brands of their own that they work on sourcing, that they work on design, they work on development. So they see and experience a lot of the same things, potentially slightly different timelines. And in fact, this was a case where because we're vertically integrated and we buy cotton in fairly heavy amounts through futures markets and whatnot, we saw this coming pretty early out there, and we got out and started talking to our retail partners, but might have been a little bit ahead of when they were seeing some of the stuff flow through. But they faced the same problems, and so not unlike really any other research we approach with them, you got to listen first and understand what that challenge is, what that problem is, and then get at some of those perceptions that they might have. So, the fact that they might perceive that this is a more commodity-like product, the fact that over the last generation, apparel has moved from over 5% of discretionary income to about 3.5% of discretionary income. So prices had actually fallen. And maybe one of the most powerful things we did is we actually went back and got copies of ads from retailers that we were working with from 1990, from 2000, from 2010, and the price points, although they were going up, they were actually just going back to where they had been 5, 10 years ago. And so John made the point about this perception that they were, paying more than they were. Well, part of that's because they were paying more not that long ago. So it created, a sense of we can succeed in with this pricing environment together.
And one of the insights that really surprised us, it surprised our retailers, that most stressed shopper, that shopper that's under a lot of pressure economically, we called them the crushed. They're living paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
When we look at clothing, and particularly just basic replenishable apparel, that purchase cycle is about 6 months. And what we see is with these really stressed shoppers, they've got to make that purchase last. It's got to last that full 6 months because they don't have the financial resources available to purchase with a frequency greater than that. And so actually what we saw, which was surprising and I think somewhat unique for apparel, is a gravitation to the leading brands within apparel categories, because those brands stand for quality, durability, long-lasting value. And qualitatively, when we spent time with these shoppers in their homes and talked with them, they very much were conscious of this idea that, I might get the cheapest product in the category, but if it doesn't last 6 months, I'm going to end up spending more, not less, on the category, and I can't afford to spend more on the category.
So, based on what you've just told me, why is it important, especially in this day and age, do you think? And how have you created a culture internally that kind of supports this type of?
Historically, research groups and departments may have been hesitant to tackle this. I see a certain irony in that these are people trained to understand and listen, and really it starts with understanding and listening to the business partners, whether they're internal or they're external, and why they have the perceptions that they have, what their challenges are, what their pain points are, so that you can help go and address and answer those questions for them, applying those same skills that the researchers are trained to do to those internal customers or external customers at the beginning of the process, and then bringing them in to the process. The second thing that we've done, though, is we've brought a fairly broad cross-functional set of groups together inside the organization, from the insights team to our shopper marketing team, for example. So we have that business knowledge inside our group, so that when we work with them, we really do work with them as a business partner, and it applies whether they're an internal marketing team or sales team, or externally with the customers as well.
To build on that idea from a consumer and shopper perspective, one of the things that's really helped us organizationally is getting the data, getting the information into as many folks' hands as possible, as well as coupled with hands-on training, because as people start to really get more familiar with getting in touch with the consumer and shopper and see the power that these data bring to their jobs and roles within the organization, you then get a real thirst and hunger for more of that. So that active participation cross-functionally is a huge benefit.
And getting, it sounds really like you've got them buying in and taking some ownership from the get-go with you collaboratively, which is, I think, a really critical point that people need to think about. Just one last question for you guys, and that would be, where do you see your organization heading in the next, let's say, 2 to 3 years, based on how you're running at a pretty good pace right now?
We think that it's going to continue to adapt to the more complex environment, whether it be the consumer and how they handle the economy or the challenges that they're facing, or it be the competitive environment that we face from other competitors, or working with our retail partners. I mean, there's so much going on in retail today, and yet our product is very close. It's very personal, and so we need to be flexible. We need to be able to adapt, but we really need to also be a part of the business, a part of understanding what are those goals and those objectives, so that we aren't somewhere you go when you need something. We're already there, and we're already a part of the process from the very beginning.
And from my perspective, we're in the second decade of the new millennium, and Insight's key role that we play is really shifting our emphasis from hindsight to foresight. To be successful in the future, we've really got to start to apply our methods to help look ahead in the retail landscape, the consumer and shopper landscape, and help anticipate those changes, and then how we organizationally respond to those changes. Because being at this conference, we've all heard it. Retailing's dramatically changing. The consumer and shopper behaviors are changing, and so we've really got to look ahead and help the organization adjust to the new realities of the future.